Welcome back to the Tulsa World Sports Extra Show. I'm your host, Juwan Lee, joined today by OU beat writers Mason Young and Eric Bailey, and also columnist Bill Haisten. We're continuing to get deeper and deeper into softball season. OU and OSU just cleaned up at regionals, now heading to super regionals this weekend. Eric, I want to start with you about a question that's been on my mind. OU 50 plus wins this year, OSU 45 plus wins this year. Who has had the more impressive coaching performance, Patty Gasso or Kenny Gajewski?
Both coaches are exceptional. Let's just start there. It's not easy to win softball games. It's not easy to win a Big 12 championship, which was what Patty Gasso did again this year at the tournament in Oklahoma City. But I'm going to have to really give Kenny Gajewski the edge this year. It's not anything that Patty Gasso didn't do. I think it's what Kenny Gajewski has done in Stillwater. He continues to win softball games. I'm just so impressed with what product he puts on the field, how he continues to not rebuild that program, just to reload that program. He's built a program that's a top eight national seed again in Stillwater, and he wins games. You're looking at a team that went into Norman and won 2 or 3 games to end the season. He's built momentum at that program, and they're riding a wave of momentum in Stillwater right now. They really played well in the regionals. They carry again, I'll use that word, momentum going into the super regional. I'm excited to see them get to Oklahoma City. I really think they're going to do it again this weekend, have a good weekend, and get to Oklahoma City. Congratulations to Oklahoma State and Kenny Gajewski for what they've done.
I kind of see the merits of both. I kind of agree with Eric on that front. I think Kenny Gajewski season long, right, being able to make it to hosting a regional and super regional is really impressive. And so is taking the Bedlam series, winning 2 out of 3 in Norman for the first time in a long time. But of late, really impressed with Patty Gasso. I mean, we get so desensitized to it because of all the winning that they've had that whenever they mess up, it's like, oh my goodness, the sky is falling. But she has this team playing incredible ball, their best ball of the season at the right time. And I think season long Kenny Gajewski, but more recently Patty Gasso.
What Kenny Gajewski is going to end up doing, guys, is getting a really nice softball stadium built at Oklahoma State, and that process is being hurried. I think there's an urgency to get that done now that maybe wasn't there a couple of years ago. So Kenny gets all the credit for building to where they are today. But I was really impressed Sunday with OU because they had this crazy midseason stretch. These are consecutive games, guys. OU won 11-2, 14-1, 8-0, 12-1, 14-0, 15-2, 11-1, 12-1, 8-1, and 12-2. So when you're in a pressure ball game on a Sunday in the postseason against a good team like Oregon, and you win 3-2, right? And they won some one-run games during the season, but they also, you remember at Austin now, they lost 2-1 twice, right? So I'm real impressed with how Patty Gasso, has a team that can win all these 11-2 ball games, but also knows how to handle the moment and the pressure of a one-run ball game with the high stakes. So, I mean, they both had an amazing season. Kenny, with a more kind of a big picture, in a big picture sense, deserves to be maybe the coach of the year in the country. I don't know, but Patty Gasso just adjusts to the circumstances of the moment and just keeps going and going and going.
Continuing with our Bedlam schools, and I'll start with you right here, Bill. For OU and OSU, both double-digit win seasons last year. OU continuing that trend. Football, yes, sorry. Football, yes, sorry. Thanks for clarifying that. OU continuing that transition into the SEC. OSU, ramping up this new Big 12. Which team is more likely to repeat their double-digit win season this year?
I honestly, Juwan, I don't think either is going to. If you look at the first half of OSU's schedule, I mean, yeah, FCS, South Dakota State is an FCS school, but they've won 29 in a row and they're a two-time defending national champion. That's a tricky opener. After that, you got Arkansas coming in to Stillwater with a desperate staff. You got Tulsa in week 3, and then Utah in the 4th game in Stillwater. And Utah is the exact Pac-12 equivalent of what OSU has been throughout the Gundy era. and they're really good. And Utah's won a bunch of games like this over the years. And then you go to Manhattan, and the last time OSU went to Manhattan, they got beat 48-0. So, and then you go.
Wow.
I just don't know, Juwan, if I mean, so a double-digit season means you've only lost two games, right? And then on the OU side of it, there will be a 3-0 non-conference, but after that, the Sooners face Tennessee, Texas, at Ole Miss, at Missouri, Alabama, at LSU. So I do not see. It's kind of a cop-out answer, but I do not see a double-digit win for either of these teams this year. I'm sorry, a double-digit win total for either team.
But if I handed you 10 grand, Bill, and you said I need you to choose one side, I can put 10 grand on.
Yeah, I'd pick OU because they've done it about 300 times in their history.
Okay.
I honestly would actually give the edge to OSU. I've kind of thought for a while now that 9-3 looks pretty good for OU at the top end, and I think it could trend more to like 8-4. I agree with Bill that Utah, very good program. That's going to be a big challenge, but it seems like we've kind of had this feeling for a while that OSU might be able to have the opportunity to kind of assert themselves as the new kings of the Big 12 in a lot of sports, with OU and Texas leaving. And maybe they'll be able to do that this year in football. I like their chances better than OU's for getting to 10 wins.
I think I agree with Mason. Until OU can prove themselves to play better on the road under Brent Venables, I'd have to give the edge to OSU having a better chance of getting to 10 than OU. Oklahoma has just struggled on the road under Brent Venables, and even the games that they've won, they've struggled to win those games on the road. And now you got to go to Auburn, you got to go to Ole Miss, you got to go to Missouri, you got to go to LSU and win those games. I'm not saying that they're not capable of winning those games. I think they can win those games, but everything has to be perfect. And until Oklahoma can prove that they can win road games and be comfortable winning road games, you got to give the edge to Oklahoma State. But I also agree with Bill. I really don't know if Oklahoma State can get to that double-digit win total either. So it's going to be a tough year of football, adjusting to the new look Big 12 for Oklahoma State and getting used to SEC football for Oklahoma.
For segment 3, we're going to have sports editor Barry Lewis join us later in the show about the PGA possibly coming to Tulsa. So for this punter, we'll immediately kick it to the rapid fire questions. And like we do every week, I mean, this is one of my favorite segments. Couple seconds for you guys to get some quick thoughts on topics. Bill, I'll kick it to you first. OKC lost in 6 games in the Western Conference semifinals to the Dallas Mavericks. When you kind of look at the state of this team, what would you say is the biggest need to address heading into this offseason?
To me, it's so easy. I mean, and I watched every game, but you could be a casual observer of this team and see that they've got to get bigger. They've got to get stronger. And, they've got plenty of scoring. They got plenty of athletic wings. They got plenty of guards. Holmgren is a brilliant player, but they need a couple of big and Jalen Williams, Arkansas Jalen Williams is a nice piece, and he is definitely a keeper. But they've got to get bigger in a couple of those spots off the bench so that they don't have a 47-31 rebound deficit like they did the other night. And so Chet Holmgren doesn't just get the crap beat out of him every night in the paint. So they've got to get bigger. That's it. And I think maybe you draft one, Juwan, and then you acquire kind of a veteran, bigger guy, a 28-year-old guy with some muscle, and those kinds of acquisitions might be the final pieces that they need to get beyond this level and get to the Western Finals and maybe even beyond.
Mason, for you, possibly some of the biggest college news this year. College football bringing back a video game that, for gamers we all cherished over a decade ago, NCAA 14. It's been rebranded as College Football 25, come out in July. For you, who would be one OU player that you're the most excited to see on this game?
Well, there's a handful. I would say for my short list, you spend so much time in the game using the quarterback. The Jackson Arnold is the very obvious one. You want to see what he looks like in a simulated situation, in a video game situation. 2 would be Deion Burks. We've talked here on this show previously of what kind of difference maker we feel like he's going to be for OU this season. And I feel like his speed will be really fun to watch in video game form. And then I'd probably go on the defensive side with someone like a PJ Adebayo. Like I enjoy when I played NCAA 14, I enjoyed rushing the passer with a defensive end and beating those tackles and getting a sack or getting a TFL in the backfield. Someone like that, I think, would be really fun to play with in the game. Somebody that has a lot of get off. But shameless plug for our listeners out there. We had a story last week asking a bunch of OU football players how they reacted to the game coming back and whether or not they opted into the game, and encourage people to go take a look at that online as soon as they can.
You know, I would love, over the past 10 years when there was no game, I would have loved to seen a Kyler Murray. I
Oh,
would have
Mace. I mean, Eric, you stole my question. I was thinking about it since you brought it up, Eric. I'll let you finish and then I'll ask the question.
I
I'll
would
let you
have
finish.
loved to seen a Kyler Murray. I would have loved to see a CeeDee Lamb. I would have loved
Hollywood Brown.
Hollywood Brown. There are so many players I would have loved to seen in those years, those 10 years missing. Some of those offensive players would have been so much fun to play with. D.D. Westbrook. I mean, can you imagine some of those offenses that Oklahoma had just to play with them? Some of the there would have been there had to have been some 99s on those teams. There had to. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, as you brought up, Eric, and while Mason was talking, I was thinking of this question: who are some guys during this span where college football wasn't producing a football video game that would have been cool to see in the game, whether that be from OU, OSU, or any other college football player that you found exciting during that time?
Tyreek Hill. Although, well, he was at OSU in 14. But it would have been fun to have seen Tyreek have a full body of work at the major college level. Obviously, he's in a. I mean, if OSU could have used him, Juwan, in the way he should have been used, because they were so lacking on backfield personnel at that time, they had to run him at tailback, and
Wow.
So yeah, it just what might have been with Tyreek Hill had he been at OSU 3 years instead of 1. If he doesn't get into some trouble and get dismissed from the program, and if they had used him as a slot receiver, an uncoverable slot receiver instead of a tailback, but we'll never know.
I think Devontae Smith as well. Just any of those receivers in that period where there was no game, just guys that can get down the field and you have a good aerial attack. That's the best feeling in the world, is when you throw it downfield to a receiver in that game, you hit B to switch onto him, and then you hit Y to jump up and catch it over a defender. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
What kind of quarterback would Baker Mayfield have been in the game? I mean, what kind of accuracy, I guess, throwing power, and then you have what would it have been like to have Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray on the same roster? Because that would have happened in 2017. You would have had 2 quarterbacks. Who would you have played if you were a gamer? Who would you? Because you would have loved to have Baker's arm and accuracy, but then you would have loved to have Kyler's speed.
That's what as a gamer, you're probably leaning more Kyler Murray just because of the speed.
Yeah.
Just because of the speed, but not to get too in depth. We'll have plenty of time to talk college football, video games, and all of that jazz. But staying with the OU program, Eric, what has been your favorite OU softball memory?
I know this is supposed to be quick responses. Let's talk softball here. Yeah, you could easily go with Jocelyn Allo and all the home runs she could hit. You could easily go with all the national championships that they won, especially 3 in a row. You know what I'm going to go with? I'm going to go with watching the players interact with all the young girls, me being a father of a girl who's now 14, almost 15, and seeing all the players interact with the young girls, signing autographs, smiling, getting smiles out of these young girls. That's the thing I enjoy. They take time to interact with kids. And at one point, these players were those young girls, and they're giving back. And that's the thing I enjoy the most. They're realizing the dreams. Once upon a time, they were young girls and they're living their dreams. And those young girls will one time be these players. And that's the exciting things. The game, they're giving back to the game. And I appreciate that so much as a dad. And I think that's what I enjoy the most about these OU softball players.
Final segment for today's panel before we jump to Barry Lewis joining us with Bill Haisten to talk about the PGA possibly coming to Tulsa. Our parting shots. We do this every single week. Our panelists leaves us with what's on their mind, something that they can leave the audience with until next week. Bill, we'll kick it off with you.
So as of today, it is 100 days until the football season begins on that Thursday night, August 29th. Tulsa opens that night, and the next night you got an OU opening at home against Temple, and you got Bixby, Owasso that night, the Battle of the Burbs, and Mike Gundy's 20th season as head coach kicks off that weekend. And there's just OU's first season in the SEC. And so anyway, I just, you'd like to have had a couple more weeks of watching the Thunder, but here we go into our like real off season, except for the softball women. Let me tell you something. The softball, I just got to say this. What has happened with softball over the last 10 years is unbelievable. There was a period on Sunday when there was softball on like 4 ESPN platforms at once. It was crazy. So great job, softball. Softball has surpassed college baseball in such an undeniable way with regard to public consumption and I think fan engagement, fan interest. But circling back, 100 days to football season, it'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, OU women's gymnastics announced Monday that Audrey Davis, who this year was a co-national champion on bars and on balance beam, is coming back for a 5th season in 2025. I think that's huge for a number of reasons. One, obviously, she's one of the best gymnasts in the country, finalist for the AAI award, which is college gyms kind of equivalent of the Heisman Trophy. But obviously for OU, there's probably going to be kind of a sour taste in the mouth from coming up short this season, faltering in the semifinals at NCAA championships and not being able to three-peat as national champions. And I think she's going to probably kind of be the leader of that team and the voice to say, this is how we get back on track and this is how we get back to winning another championship, which if they could win it in 2025, it would be their 7th. It would tie them for 3rd most all time with UCLA, which is obviously a very historic gymnastics program.
My shout out is to Skip Johnson, the 7th year Oklahoma baseball coach, who was named the Big 12 Coach of the Year after leading the Sooners to a Big 12 championship in their last year in the conference. The Sooners are likely going to be a top 8 national seed, get to host through the Supers. Of course, 2 years ago, they were a runner-up in the College World Series. Of course, we're 30 years ago, they won a national championship at OU. So congratulations to Skip. I remember sitting in his office after he got the job and we were just talking, and he's just a good old country boy, Skip Johnson. We were talking, and I remember we were just talking about different things about life. And he said, oh yeah, we were talking about bowling. And I don't know how we got on the topic of bowling. And he said, oh yeah, I've rolled 8 or 9 300 games. And I was like, really? And I remember back in 2020 when he had his best baseball team ever, probably before that 2022 team. And they were destined probably to go to Omaha that year. He had a great pitching staff, and they had their season canceled due to COVID. That was a tough year too. But congratulations to Skip. He's just a good old boy. That 2020 year, I remember he made a video where he went to the creek and and he was teaching people how to wash their hands. He took some soap down to the creek and said, first you do this, then you do this, then you do this. Let's wash our hands. So Skip Johnson, congratulations. Just a great guy. Good luck in the postseason, Skip.
All right, we appreciate you guys. Mason, Eric, we're going to get Barry in here. Bill, you stay with me and we'll be back shortly. All right, welcome back to our last segment. We replaced our OU beat writers, Mason and Eric, with our sports editor, Barry Lewis. Barry, first of all, how are you today?
Doing great, and looking forward to my next stops on my high school spring football tour, which I'm planning to go to Lincoln Christian and Wagner next, weather permitting.
And I'll go to BA. I'll go to Broken Arrow in the next day or two. We're taping this on Tuesday, so probably tomorrow I'll go watch BA practice and see what's going on with Josh Blankenship's 3rd team or 4th team, Barry? 3rd team. 4th. That's crazy. The way
4th team.
4th team already. Wow. Yeah.
Well, it's always so easy to get consumed with high school football content when Bill and Barry is on the podcast together. But let's get to why we invited Barry, back on the show today. Bill, you wrote a great column that's in today's paper about Southern Hills possibly getting another PGA championship. They've already had five prior to the one that they may get. First, Bill, I kind of want you to touch on what was it like experiencing having a PGA championship here and what a future one may do for the city of Tulsa.
Well, I mean, it's surreal as it happens. It's a lot of work with regard to covering it. It's a lot of work for Southern Hills, and it's a great sacrifice for the membership at Southern Hills because you got to kind of give up your golf course for an extended period for the PGA of America to prepare the course, or the USGA if it's a US Open. But as it Barry and I have had the same experiences there since '94. A lot of big tournaments. In fact, what is it, Barry? 94 PGA, 95 Tour Championship, 96 Tour Championship, 01 US Open, 07 with Tiger winning the PGA Championship, and then the 21 Senior and the 2022 PGA Championship. That's a lot of big time golf, man. And Barry's been at every round, and I've been at every round. And it's surreal as you're on the course. It is a surreal experience to see literally the best players in the world. And if you're inside the ropes, especially, I mean, you're so close to them and you just marvel. Everything about what they do looks different than mortal golfers, and it sounds different. And of course, Southern Hills is just kind of a paradise of a place anyway. It's the most beautiful property in Oklahoma. So, but yeah, Barry Lewis has probably walked more steps covering golf than anybody in Tulsa world history. Would you think, Barry? I think that's a legit possibility.
I would say so, because I've been doing the round the clock feature on all the big tournaments out there since '94, and that requires a lot of walking. And I've been to every major there. Prior to '94, I've been to every major there as a spectator since 1970, the 70 PGA. So I've seen a lot of great moments out there. From a media standpoint, it's interesting because you've got media from all over the world there.
That's true.
And so that's an incredible experience in and of itself. And in all the people you meet from all over the globe, as I've done in my Around the Clock feature, that's very fascinating. And when I was watching the PGA on Sunday, well, all last weekend, I just thought back to 2 years ago. That was one of it seems like the PGAs we get here keep getting better and better. And I think that was the topper, one of the great experiences of my reporting or journalistic career.
Right.
And how everything, we were so blessed in Tulsa to have had such a great week in every way there, including a scintillating finish and Southern Hills. And I thought that was also, after seeing the pros just beat up Valhalla, just 21 under par, 20 under par, all those ridiculously low scores for a major, how Southern Hills was set up and the scores reflected what a major should be. So just a perfect week in every way that we were so fortunate to have 2 years ago.
Well, hey guys, plenty more time to talk about PGA championships, but this has been another great show. I know Eric and Mason has already took off, but for Eric, Mason, Bill, Barry, we appreciate you coming on. I'm your host, Juwan Lee, and the Tulsa World Sports Extra Show. We'll see you guys next week.